Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I'm your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old-school basketball to a new-school audience, and today we're bringing the story of Dave Stallworth's heart attack. Now, Stallworth was not an NBA All-Star or anything like that. However, he did play in the NBA for 8 seasons and was one of the core members of the 1970 championship New York Knicks. And what really got me thinking of this story is how sports medicine has come such a long way since a generation of Stallworth. The other thing that got me thinking about this was a 2022 study that came from the Smith Heart Institute, which is part of the Cedars-Sinai Medical Institute. They showed that as much as a 30% increase in the incidence of cardiac arrest or a heart attack among people between the ages of 25 and 44. And that really caught my attention. And who can forget that Bronny James, the son of LeBron James, suffered cardiac arrest in August of 2023. Our producer Jacob, who also happens to be my son, is the same age as Bronny James, so that really resonated with me deeply. Now, this is a topic that pops up and impacts athletes from all sports, but for this episode, we will focus on basketball specifically. And that is what brought me to Dave Stallworth. He was 6'7", 200 pounds, small forward from Wichita State University. The Knicks drafted him with the 5th overall pick in the 1965 NBA draft, and he played quite well. He averaged nearly 13 points and 6 rebounds per game as a rookie, and he came back during his second season and repeated those same numbers. He was a key piece of the powerhouse team that the Knicks were slowly building. The team already had Willis Reed and Dick Barnett. Stallworth was the next piece of the championship puzzle. He was an exciting player who was able to bring in a bit of playground flair to the NBA court, and the fans loved it. The young player was really going to be something special. His NBA future looked bright, and the Knicks were going somewhere. Then, late in his second season, the Knicks were on the West Coast playing the San Francisco Warriors when he suddenly felt a pain in his chest. He had no idea what was going on, but he knew that he needed to leave the game. The game was played in a neutral site in Fresno, California, where Stallworth was admitted to the hospital. Naturally, Stallworth was scared. He overheard one of the doctors say the words, "heart attack," and his mind could not accept it. How in the world could a young, healthy professional athlete in absolute prime condition suffer a heart attack? But the test came back somewhat inconclusive, so the doctors released him and said that he could play in the next game, which was also against the San Francisco Warriors. So the very next night, he was in uniform lined up against the Warriors, but this time they were actually on their home court in San Francisco. And again, he was not able to finish the game. However, this time it was because of a leg injury, not his heart. It was terrible to have to leave the game for a second night in a row, but at least it was for a different reason. Now, after the game, the team returned to New York and Stallworth went to the hospital for some follow-up tests that the team had ordered just to make absolute sure that Stallworth was okay to continue. Well, Stallworth was not okay. During the follow-up tests, they were able to conclude that Stallworth had, in fact, suffered a heart attack a few nights earlier. It was determined that the attack was mild and that Stallworth's life was never in danger. A regular non-athlete would have had to spend maybe a week in recovery and then could resume normal activities like going to work and whatnot. However, we are not talking about a regular person. This is a high-priced NBA athlete, and a heart attack, no matter how mild, was just too much. A professional basketball player has to be in peak condition. Basketball requires an incredible amount of physical conditioning. To run up and down an NBA court requires that a heart be in excellent condition. The doctors in 1967 determined that Stallworth had to retire immediately. Playing basketball puts too much pressure on the heart, and they felt that Stallworth may not survive the next heart attack. The risk to his life was just too great, and at the age of 25, his NBA career was over after just 156 games. Stallworth was a very well-liked player. Friends and family contacted him offering condolences on his career and offering to help in any way they could. Not knowing where to go, he moved back in with his parents in California to recover and figure out what the next step was going to be. As you can imagine, people that become athletes have a hard time just sitting around or being sedentary. He could not stand the slow pace of recovery and needed a change in his life, and he had to be able to do something to occupy his time, but without putting his heart at risk. And we'll be right back with what that next chapter was after this break.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row 1, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row 1 gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row 1 shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row 1 catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row 1 Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with the story of Dave Stallworth and his cardiac arrest. After spending some time at his parents' house, he decided to go back to Wichita State University, where he played his college ball. He coached a local amateur team while receiving support from the university. His team went undefeated, and the word got back to New York that Stallworth might be a pretty good coach. And while he was coaching, he was starting to go for short jogs just to see how much his heart could actually take. He also began putting himself through basic basketball drills like dribbling, passing, and shooting, and everything seemed to be just fine. He consulted with cardiologists who confirmed that light activity would be okay and not put him in any sort of risk. But what the doctors did not know was that Stallworth was not just looking to participate in drills and go for short jogs. He had developed a secret plan to return to the NBA. So, over time, he began to increase the intensity of his workouts. He continued increasing those workouts until they were practically at an NBA level, and his heart was holding up just fine. Eventually, he contacted Eddie Donovan, the general manager of the Knicks, and let him in on what was really happening. Stallworth was able to keep this all under wraps as they did not want to give anyone a false sense of hope of what was happening. A heart attack was still a serious issue to deal with. Eventually, the news came out. It had been over 2 years since his heart attack against the Warriors, and the Knicks sent Stallworth to be examined by the best cardiologists that they could find in New York. And under the supervision of the Knicks team doctor, he got the results he was hoping for. Dave Stallworth could return to full NBA activity. What a joyous day for Stallworth and the Knicks. He spent the summer of 1969 getting himself back into peak condition. He was as ready as he could be for the new season of basketball. He was now 27 years old and only entering his 3rd season of NBA basketball after a 2-year break. But this time, the Knicks were a completely different team than the one that he had played on before. During his 2 years away from the team, they had added Bill Bradley, Dave DeBusschere, Cassie Russell, and Walt Frazier. And with all of that, they still had Willis Reed in the middle. This was going to be a fun return to the NBA. In his first year back with the team, they went all the way to the NBA Finals and defeated the Lakers in 7 games. At one point during Game 5, Stallworth had to guard Wilt Chamberlain because DeBusschere was in foul trouble, and he did an outstanding job. If he could come back from a heart attack, then defending Chamberlain was just another challenge. In case you need a refresher, the 1970 NBA Finals was the year of the famous Willis Reed game, where he limped out for Game 7 and made the first 2 shots of the game, and then the team just took off from there. All that hard work paid off, and he was back in the NBA, and he had collected for himself a championship ring. He also played in every single game of that season, and during that whole time, his heart held up just fine. A couple of years later, he was part of a trade that brought Earl Monroe to the Knicks, and that meant that Stallworth found himself on the Baltimore Bullets for 3 seasons. However, in 1974, he was able to re-sign with the Knicks for one final NBA season. He had played only 7 games that year and averaged 1.5 points per game on an average of 8 minutes per game. After Stallworth retired from the NBA the second time, he embarked on a career with the Boeing Corporation back in Wichita, Kansas. Sadly, Stallworth did pass away in 2017 at the age of 75. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, sports medicine and medicine in general has come a long way in the nearly 60 years since Stallworth had his heart attack. In the case of Bronny James, he had his incident in August, and under careful monitoring, he was able to return to the court in December of that same year. He was playing again in less than 4 months after his cardiac arrest. For many young athletes today, this will also be the case. We simply understand so much more about how the human body works. And can you imagine what doctors will discover over the next 60 years that will increase our understanding of the cardiovascular system? It will be an incredible time to be alive. And I'm just glad in the case of Stallworth and Bronny that both were able to return to the court. If it were not for modern medicine, we would not see these guys playing for so long. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the first player in NBA history to play a 20th season, and that was back in 1989. Since then, 8 more players have done it, and it would not surprise me at all to see even more NBA players reaching season 20 over the next few years. Well, that is it for today. I hope you were able to see how modern medicine impacts the length of playing careers, which also impacts career totals. It used to be the case where scoring 20,000 career points was an incredible accomplishment, but now over 50 players have done it because players play longer than they ever did before. Anyway, join us next time when we share the story of the University of Utah's Fab Five. And for that, I had to take you all the way back to the 1940s when Utah brought in 5 first-year players and then took it all the way. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of sports yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find shorter historical posts as well as comments and discussion starters on today's game. I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories in the past. Take care and see you soon.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.